Hi, I'm Jasmine and you're watching my channel, The Curious White Coat. I'm a new doctor in my first year of internship, but I actually started this channel in my last year of medical school because I wanted to share what I've learned along the way. Today, I'm going to be talking about how medical students can make their lives easier on their clinical rotations. Whenever someone is able to give me advice about like a difficult situation that they went through or like give a cautionary tale, I personally like to listen because I feel like it saves me so much time and effort and trouble. So with that in mind, I wanted to make this video to provide some advice for all of the medical students that are getting ready to enter into their clinical rotations. And I guess this could also apply to pre-med students who are maybe doing some shadowing too. Staying organized is going to make your life so much easier. Try to minimize the amount of sheets of paper that you're writing notes on. That way you're not like rifling through all of these different papers in your pockets or maybe losing paper that you wrote notes on during rounds. At first it's going to seem like everything is important and has to be written down, but as you get some more experience and as time passes, you'll realize that not everything needs to be included, and you'll get better at writing less of the fluffy information and keeping it just trimmed down to the pertinence. And this is something I'm still working on myself, honestly. I think it just comes with time. For example, like you don't necessarily have to present about the wisdom tooth extraction that someone had like 30 years ago when the patient is here for a seizure and your job was to get like a focused history, you know? So just keep that in mind. Also, there are notebooks out there that actually come with formatted outlines. So they'll have sections for you that are already labeled as, you know, chief complaint, chief concern, HPI, review of systems, and they'll have sections in there for your lab results and even have like the little fishbone for your basic metabolic panel. And having those things written down and not having to write them over and over again will be very helpful for you too. Some people like to color code. I've tried to do that and sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. I do have those multicolored pens and I'll try to write down the things that are on my to-do list in red. So if color coding helps you be more efficient, give it a try. You may still have to study for a shelf exam on top of all of your clinical duties. Break up your studying so that you can take things on in a more manageable fashion rather than pulling these like all-nighters and cramming sessions at the last minute, because that's just not as effective. I would start every rotation, I'd have like a schedule of how I wanted to break up the topics for that entire rotation. So I would break things down into maybe like 2-hour bits during the week. So I'd come home from like maybe a long day on the wards, or if I was doing something shorter, like a shorter clinic day, maybe I would take like 3 hours to study afterwards. And what I do is I take an hour to read up on topics that I didn't know throughout the day. And once that hour ended, I was done. I wasn't doing any more reading on those things. And then maybe I'd take like an hour or two to do some practice questions. Definitely utilize the high yield resources. UWorld and the NBME shelf like practice tests worked really well for me. There are other resources out there, Sketchy, Amboss, Online MedEd, Step Up to Medicine. Find what works for you and explore those different options. Certain rotations have different resources that are best for that specialty, and other rotations are going to have different resources that work best. So you also have to be adaptive in that too. Now, I know scheduling your fun doesn't seem like that much fun, but I feel that when you are in a position where you have a lot of responsibilities and you're very busy, you have to be intentional about making time for the things that you enjoy. Even now, as a new doctor, as an intern where life is very busy, when I have my days off, I plan to do things that I enjoy. I feel like you have to add, the things that you like to do, that you love to do in your life, or else you're not going to be 100% happy. So when I have my days off, I do something that I love and that makes me happy. And I think you should try to do something that makes you happy too. This is actually maybe some random advice, but it's something that I've noticed. So you want to know where certain things are. And by certain things, I mean, know where the workroom is, the bathroom, the cafeteria, how to find the stairs. Yeah, those would be the big things. Hopefully you'll know how to find the entrance to the hospital when you walk out of whatever parking garage that you're coming from. But It also helps to drop a pin so you can find your way back, especially if you're on a very large medical campus or in a very large like community area. So that's just something that I've noticed. It's kind of random, but a lot of people talk about it, and I feel like it doesn't always get mentioned. So be able to find those things. It will alleviate some stress for you. Set expectations early on. Figure out what your role should be as the medical student in a clinical rotation who's on this new team, or as the pre-med student who's, shadowing on an observership. Also make sure that you let us know what your expectations are and what you want to get out of the rotation too. So this could be a certain procedure that you want to see, or maybe if you're on a surgical rotation, this could be like a certain thing that you wanted to do or learn how to suture a certain way. Think about those things and come with those expectations ready. Also, we all had to go through it with the activity checklists where you need a signature, everyone has to have an observed history and physical, performing a certain procedure or test. Like, we're well aware of those requirements for your clerkship grade, but just let us know ahead of time. If we forget, just remind us. And that could be as simple as saying, hey, Dr. Such and so, I want to do an observed history and physical for my clerkship requirement on patient X the next time we go see him today. So just remind us, and we'll all, try to make sure that everyone's getting the most out of the rotation. When I was a medical student in my clinical years, which was a couple months ago, I remember hearing someone say they were saying this to a medical student. They're like, you're not getting paid to be here. Like, you're going to miss this time when you're an intern. Like, take advantage of the free time. When we say you can go home, we mean it. Like, go home. And I bring that up to say this. When you're dismissed, it's not a test. I'm not trying to gauge how interested someone is in becoming a doctor based on whether or not they left at 3 p.m. when I said they could go home, or if they stayed until 7 p.m. when I'm allowed to go home. So I just think that would be a weird thing to evaluate somebody by, and I don't think anyone really does that. So when we say you can go home, please go home. Eat a little dinner, do a little studying, like hang out with your friends, decompress. That way you can wake up smiling in the morning to do it all again tomorrow. If you don't understand something that's happening, please ask. If there is like someone who keeps saying a certain acronym over and over again, or maybe a term that you're unfamiliar with, don't be afraid to just ask them to explain what it is that they mean. One person can't be expected to know everything, so it's perfectly fine to ask when you don't understand. If there is a part of the medical plan that you're not really understanding, ask someone to explain it to you, because it's supposed to be our plan. You're a member of the team too, and we want to make sure that everyone understands what it is we're doing for our patients. If there is a situation that you feel is an emergency, please call for help. I would actually say at the beginning of the rotation, get the numbers for your residents, like their cell phones, get their pager numbers. That way you have someone to contact. And when you're setting up your expectations, you can also ask, like, what are the things that you would want me to call you for? Like, if there is a certain situation happening with a patient and like things aren't looking good, like what would qualify to you as not looking good? Like, what are the things that you want me to call you about? And that's actually something that I did at the beginning of my rotations. It definitely helped me feel more calm, because sometimes you might be the one who walks into the room first and something could be going wrong. So it's important to have a plan. Personally, I think that if there is an emergency that you as the medical student feel needs to get handled before me as the resident can get to the room, call for help, activate the emergency response team. My feelings will not be hurt because you walked into a room and you saw the patient was unresponsive, they were not breathing, and they had no pulse, and you went ahead and activated the emergency response system before you called me. Like, my feelings will not be hurt. In fact, I will be very happy that you did that. So if there's ever a situation that you're uncomfortable with, call for help. My final thing that I want to say is to remember to have fun. You're coming out of years of studying, in your preclinical years and your pre-med years, and you've been reading textbooks, and now you finally get to do the thing that you wanted to do, which is go into the hospital or the clinic or the OR and take care of patients. Maybe you haven't decided on a specialty yet, and that rotation could be the opportunity where you fall in love with a specific part of medicine and find your calling. You're there to learn something and enjoy learning those things. So stay open, just jump in, get your hands dirty, don't be afraid to do that, and just make the most of the opportunity. So that's all that I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, The Curious White Coat, so that you can keep up with my latest videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.